Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Welcome to the Wicked Radio Network.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Crazy Life. No Jen this week, so it's me, Brian, and joining me is Heno.
Hello.
And we're Jen's off because it rained a couple times and knocked out her internet or something, and I guess I don't know. I got nothing better to make up for her this week, so. I do want to say, officially, happy belated birthday to her. Even though Heno and I both, of course, said happy birthday to her on the actual day, but she had a birthday, and I'm sure we'll hear all about that next week when she returns. So that's pretty cool, though. Thanks to everyone who has been listening for a while, and welcome to everyone who's tuning in for the first time to us. And, we just like to talk about mental health and mental illness and share our journeys on that path. So hopefully you'll enjoy what you hear. And, I guess after that, I don't know, whatever. How was your week, Heno?
Well, it's been feels like I was just on here yesterday.
You were? Wait.
I haven't had enough week yet.
I know. It's a short week. We're going to run into this on Salty Language, too, because we recorded Sunday and we're recording Thursday. So we're going to have a really short week for this one. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just not enough material.
I know. It's tough. Yeah. You just got to pretend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how's your half week been?
Yeah, how's my half? Yeah. It's like a half-life.
Yep.
That's been pretty good so far. I had a friend over for the weekend who was going through some tough times and just life change stuff.
Sure.
And, I have to say, it's never easy, but I always admire when people do it with the best, we talked about it is she's like, I just want to get through this without saying anything really stupid, without,
Yeah.
She's like, I know I'm going to get emotional, but I don't want to have a bad emotional reaction.
Sure.
And so she came over here because, he's moving out, and, who wants to be around for that?
Yeah. It's very awkward. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it was, I'm realizing that I didn't realize I was possessive of my time and space as I am. I always thought but I think a lot of it, I was talking to Sharon about it, is I think I used to, like when Sharon first moved here, I didn't quite feel the same way, but I think I still felt like this is my house.
Yeah.
And now I think it feels like our house. And so I'm a lot more conscientious. It's about both of us sharing, it's her space too.
Yeah.
And to have people over, not that it's not about them. It's about just anytime you have guests, it's the routine changes, the vibe changes. It's just different. And, it's been enlightening for me. And what's great is I have friends that I can talk to about this, which I really appreciate. That I could, before she was leaving, I was able to say, hey, there's one thing I've learned, and I appreciate you coming out here and allowing me to still do my things, to have that open level of communication with somebody and be able to, converse, honestly about the fact that, like, wow, I didn't realize that I'm really possessive of my routine and I really am. And I said a lot of it has changed though, because of Sharon. It's like, it's our space now.
I learned the same thing, for a long time there too. And I don't think I realized it, for a long time that's what was going on. Like around, say, like, the holidays, when, people would want, like you'd have people over for the holidays, to celebrate Christmas or something like that. And it was like, in my head, I'm kind of like, when are they leaving? What is all this? And it wasn't, people are like, oh, you're being a jerk about it. And and like, I didn't realize it either, but it was like in my head, what was really going on was, how can I return to my routine?
Yeah.
And looking back at it, at the time, I didn't realize that, because it would, if you could have vocalized that, it would make more sense. Like, no, you don't understand. Removing me from my routine makes me anxious. It makes, like, this is me, of course, it makes me anxious. It makes me very uncomfortable. It's basically, not to mention it kind of felt like people are invading your safe zone,
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm going to someone else's house, in my head, my safe zone is still my safe zone. I can leave and go to my safe spot, But if they're in my safe spot, there's nowhere to go. You can't go be safe somewhere. So it's like, at some point in my head, I'm just like, I want them to leave. I want them to leave. I want them to leave. It's like, I need that return to my routine, because that's how, I get back to, that's how I get back to being me, basically. And that's how I get back to being calm. And then they leave, and it's like, okay, everything's fine now. It's, it was so odd. And looking at it now, I realized that that's what was going on. I needed that return to my routine. So I understand. It's like, I'm very possessive of my space, my time. And it's something I still need a lot of work on that. But I think where I am right now, that is going to get pushed off. Eventually I'm going to have to face that. But I understand that's something I'm still going to need some work on. But,
That's why I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I wanted to say too, is that these are the moments where I really get to reflect on, because I'm always the type of person who's like, hey, yeah, come on out, and, whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. Because I love to show off our area. I love bringing people up here. It is, a beautiful area, all that kind of stuff. But it makes me really have to look at, okay, how much of this is control stuff?
Yeah.
How much is there distorted thinking going on here?
Yeah.
And it's just like work is a great place for me to practice,
right?
Doing things differently. This is the other part where I'd sit there and go, okay, am I being reasonable? Am I, not stretching myself out? Is this legitimate, or am I being a control freak?
Yeah.
It's good questions. It's a really good evaluation. Like, what's interesting is, like, my mother, I never have any issue with her being here because she is ridiculously independent.
Yeah.
And she's the first person to just go sit outside by herself and read a book.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to entertain her.
Right.
And so while she does that, I can do whatever I do. And it's never an issue.
Yeah.
But if I have, friends over that, and especially, when you have somebody over that's going through a hard time, you want to stay connected with them.
Yeah.
That was part of the deal. This is why I said, come over.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what was going on with, that's a tough situation. I've been there. I've done it before.
Sure.
It's not easy, and so there was that, like, here's an opportunity to be of service to somebody else. But then there's this part of me that's just like,
Right.
And it has nothing to do with them at all.
Right.
Nothing at all.
I used to jokingly tell my friends that I was like, hey, if you ever need a place to stay, my front porch is open to you, And
what was great is I did get to have my time.
Yeah.
And not have to go to that point.
Right.
It's like, I got a garage.
Yeah. That was the thing was, I said that, of course, in jest, because if one of my friends needed me, of course, I would open, any place I ever had to them. But it was, but at the same time, like, if you really dug down to the truth, I would almost prefer to have somebody not in my environment. And it's not in a jerk way. It really is that I'm very much a person who likes, I don't like my routine interrupted, because my routine, we've talked about this on this show before. My routine is my illusion of control. It's when I feel like I can do things the way I want them to, I feel like I control the environment, even though we both know it's not necessarily true. You cannot do a routine and still be completely in plenty of control in an environment. Like, something else can be thrown in there, and in your head, you're like, it's that distorted thinking that you think that everything is like blown up on you, but it's not. It's just, no, you just have to adapt. Like, every morning I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a bowl of cereal or oatmeal or something. You get up and you realize there's no oatmeal. Is your day ruined? No. Now, mentally, you may think your day's ruined. Now, you could allow it to ruin your day. But in actuality, is the day over? Is the world going to then explode? No. It just means you have to come up with another option for breakfast. That's really all it means. In a logical sense, you have to figure something else out, and that's the thing with it. And that was really difficult for a long time. And that's where therapy has helped me, because, and again, that's where my therapist is, well, what if this happens? Then what? Well, okay, well, what's the worst case scenario, and those things. And that's why going down those paths has really helped me.
Great questions.
And it's the truth, though, and that's why I said I'm still not great at that when someone not wrecks, but when they throw that monkey wrench into my routine. I still want my routine, If I'm doing something, I still want it to be a certain way, but I'm trying to get better about, hey, things don't always go that way,
Well, a lot of people in recovery, and I was like this too, we have to develop a routine. And I'm sure this really goes with mental health as well, where it helps us create a new way of seeing the world.
Yes.
But the unfortunate part about it is, because when you're making a change like that and you're actually finally dealing with your thoughts and feelings for the first time, trying to really look at them with clarity, it can be a scary thing. And the last thing you want to be is in a state of, I don't know what to do.
Yes.
Because that's usually, once again, I'm stuck in that neighborhood I don't want to be in. So we create these habits and these new routines. Plus, we used to have something else we would do, whether it was drinking or it's a new life basically.
Yeah.
You're no longer lying in bed all day. Okay, well now what do I do?
Yeah.
And the problem is I see a lot of people become too rigid in that, and that's where I need to question myself: is am I becoming too rigid? Because I'd like to be the same me regardless of what the circumstances are, I noticed when I was buying this house and I didn't have a place to live and I was staying at Sharon's apartment, I became kind of a jerk. I mean, there was a point where, and I realized that it's like, I felt no sense of where am I right now?
Yeah.
Like all my stuff is in storage. All of my things that give me, my little, you're the tools of your routine.
Mm-hmm.
The things that give you joy during the day, everything is just somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought to myself, it's like, I don't want to be like this. However, there is a point where I just have to be kind of honest that I'm going to be like this.
Yes.
And that was the thing that I just told Sharon is I'm going to be different right now. Once again, change of rules here. Let me express the rule change right now. I'm going to be a little off. I'm going to work on it.
Yep.
Because I'd really like to be, when we're on vacation, we're out of our routine, but we generally have excitement to go along with it.
Yeah.
It's new stuffs.
It's so weird, isn't it? It's so odd, isn't it though? Like you can't, it's so weird. Like in your head, you can look at a vacation and go, you can go be okay for X amount of time for a vacation, a week, a weekend, whatever the time frame, 2 weeks, whatever the time frame is. And it doesn't seem to bother you.
No.
Like I know I'm going to be displaced for X amount of time. And
strange bed, strange room, strange everything, strange food.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have a little issue with it. Like I still generally, there's still a routine for, like I still build a routine even when I go and stuff, but, it's still not the same. It's a vacation routine. It's a different routine, but it's different. It's not the same as home,
But if I'm displaced out of my house because, let's say I have to have the termite company tented and I got to live in a hotel for a week. All hell's breaking loose now.
Yeah. Right.
If I could just look at it as like, I'm having a little vacation.
Right. Yeah.
Oh no, but the world is falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's why when I do take a vacation, I like the idea of coming back a day early so I can actually reacquaint myself with my routine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and feel grounded again.
You made a great point about how when you're essentially trying to shift from one thing to the next, because like going from the idea of letting having depression overwhelm you, and it's like, my daily routine essentially is, am I getting out of bed? Like waking up, assessing where I'm at, am I getting out of bed today, basically, and one of the things I have to do is I have to take my medicine. So there is a routine to it, and it's like, well, you have to use the bathroom. So when you get up to use the bathroom, take your medicine, so there's those routines, like you're up, so do this, at least get those, so there's certain elements to it that you build into that part of it. And like you said, the thing you have to be careful of is, not becoming too rigid to where, and that's what I was getting at earlier, which is if something changes that, don't let that completely throw your day into the trash. And I know people that it does. And because of mental illness, I know some where it's not mental illness, but it's just, that's how controlling of a person they are. And maybe it is a mental illness, but it's an undiagnosed. I don't know. I don't want to diagnose anyone because, again, not a doctor, but they're undiagnosed, and that kind of thing will still ruin their day because they want that much control on their day that, again, if they wake up and they have blueberries on their oatmeal and they're out of blueberries, it will anger them, and then they won't eat the oatmeal. And then that will lead to them going to work and being angry. Plus they haven't eaten breakfast. So you know what I mean? Like there's this whole thing. One will chain into another across a day. And so these things, even if it is a routine, it's like still, give yourself some fluidity there that, again, life is going to life you, and even with these routines, I kind of think for me, there's essential elements in my routine. Again, going to the bathroom, taking my medicine. I have to do those things. If I won't get out of bed and take those, like I live, where I live, someone will check on me and be like, did you take your medicine today? If not, that medicine will be brought to me. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. There are certain elements that have to be upheld, kind of a deal. And so there's some that just kind of make sure that you understand which ones have to be upheld, and then then be fluid with the rest of them.
And I like that if you can develop that tool. I think that's a great tool. It's so hard to do when you're in the middle of that. But
for sure, yeah.
If you could come up with that tool to say that conversation like that you were just talking about with your therapist, if you could have that conversation with yourself, say, okay, how about just for today, I go with some strawberries instead of the blueberries?
Right, exactly.
Or, can I survive without this? Can I get, if a person can develop that, then, because I have some medications that I take as well, and every once in a while I'll be halfway to work and I'll realize I didn't take it, and I'm about to drive home, and be late for work, but I have to have that conversation with myself. It's like, okay, can you get through today without it? Yes, I can. You know, when I get home later this evening, I can still take it,
right?
And everything's fine. And tomorrow's another day.
Yeah,
which is another great tool to use, is to remember. It's like, okay, all right, it didn't quite work out today. Can you live? Are there other options?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. Well, let's try to get through today, and tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
And we can get back to how we do it.
Yeah. Like, hey, you couldn't have your strawberry or your blueberries on your oatmeal. Is there a breakfast place you've been wanting to try? Today's a great opportunity.
Wow. What a great way of reframing that.
It's
just saying, hey, why don't you take yourself out for a treat today?
Yeah.
Make that real because it is when we're in a vulnerable place, whether it's through change in life, we're trying something new. It could be new medication that you're on. It could be, a new life path you're on, whatever it is. Having the ability, some of these things can be huge.
Yeah.
It's, and somebody on the outside might look at you and like they're surprised, but it's just, they just don't understand.
Yeah.
And until you've been there, some of these things can be gigantic. And so developing tools. Oh, that's another thing that we, and I think it was on the Twitter, it was either Twitter or the Kick, I think it was Twitter group now. And the topic came up about, utilizing the gym and stuff for stress relief. And, the whole thing with that is you should never use outside tools for your meditation, centering, stress, whatever it is. You should learn inside tools for those, because what do you do that day that you can't go there?
Yeah.
Because you're out of your routine. One of my coworkers, he gets up super early and goes rides a bike.
Mm-hmm.
He does it multiple times a week. Well, when he hurt his neck, he couldn't ride his bike, and he was honestly looking at me going, I'm starting to lose it.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's because you've created an outside activity as your source of centering, of stress relief, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And when you're unable to do it, you got nothing.
Yeah. Or at least always have a backup plan, kind of a thing. It's like, I remember seeing, I think it was The Rock that posted on his Instagram the one day about, because someone asked him what he does on, like when he travels, because he's always traveling. And they were like, do you ever, they were like, obviously he's got the money, he can stay where he wants hotel wise. But they were like, what do you do if you happen to stay at a hotel that doesn't have a gym, or you're low on motivation? And he kind of mentioned some stuff he does like in the room, more body weight exercise stuff. And he was like, you always have to have a backup plan, because sometimes I don't have time to go to a gym proper, but I still want to get a little workout in, because he said he uses it to help him fight jet lag. Because he said when he first wakes up, boom, he hits the gym. It's the first thing he does. So what he does when he hits a new country, because he's tired, and the time difference a lot of times, is he said he hits the gym, because that's how he gets his body in okay, it's morning, or it's time to go. that's how he stays in his routine.
It realigns him, and
Yep.
there's, I'm sure, hormone releases and all sorts of benefits
Yeah.
to it. It makes perfect sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, if I can't hit a gym, some body weight exercises, or he carries a few, what do you call them, resistance bands and, stuff like that to kind of still get a sweat in, basically, even though a lot of hotels now offer gyms and stuff. But it's, he's like, I do something so I still get a little bit in so that it wakes my body up, basically. And it was, there you go, he has a backup plan. Even though he normally would rely on that external source, he still has an internal or a backup concept. So at least have that. But yeah, you're right. I'm more with you. Just like, if you need something to center yourself, stick with you rather than a gym, because it's, you're always there.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one thing I wanted to bring up on the last show that I didn't, and speaking of not having I don't have any other tools to deal with this, is I had to do last week. I was asked to format our employee handbook at work. So when, our old one got sent to this lawyer, this HR attorney, basically, and she went through and got rid of everything that didn't belong in there, just basically deleted it, and then just dumped in paragraphs of new language.
Oh, geez.
Or said, move this here, move that there, right?
Yeah.
So there was a table of contents with hyperlinks.
Mm-hmm.
There was then, the format of, and then all of a sudden in a page will be missing. And then on the next page will all of a sudden be something that doesn't have margins like the rest of it, isn't the right font, all that stuff. And unfortunately, our office staff isn't really knowledgeable about computers.
Right. This sounds like homework I would have been given in one of my graphic design classes. Like, it does. It sounds like it's like, here, solve the problem and then turn this in as, like properly formatted, basically. Yeah, for publishing.
So, and it's just mainly because I'm familiar with computer. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I went in depth in Word.
Yeah, right.
But I have the aptitude to figure it out, and I, eventually figured it out, got through it. But it was still a lot of busy work.
Yeah.
Especially going through and doing hyperlinks and tables of contents and stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
And I had to develop a workflow, and it's been a while since I've felt this, but if I sit in front of a computer for a long enough time doing the same thing over and over again, I start to get anxiety, and it literally feels like claustrophobia, and to the point where I have to get up and I have to walk, I have to move, I have to do something. I start to shake, and the first time it happened was years and years ago. Where I used to work in California, we were rebuilding all these decks, and I was maintaining spreadsheets of all the materials we were buying. And so I'm literally counting nuts and bolts,
Jeez, yeah.
And it's just data entry.
Right.
And I would start to have an anxiety attack sitting there. I was just uncomfortable in my skin, and I had to stand up and I had to go walk around. It didn't, if it was raining, I'm in the rain. It's like I had no tool, and it's been a while since I felt it. And it came to me on Sunday, and my GM's like, "Are you going to get this done?" I said, "No, I'm going to finish this tomorrow because I need to go move somewhere right now because I'm about to just scream." Right.
I understand, though. I've talked with people before where they run into that, where sometimes, you need a change. You essentially just need to change the scenery to break the anxiety, though.
Yeah.
Especially in work is generally, where it is, and I remember one of the jobs Jen had, and she used to get anxiety really bad, and she tends to collect it in her shoulders and her neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember her and I talking about it, and I was like, when you feel it doing that, it was like, get up, go get a drink of water, or you just go into the bathroom for a minute, or just change the scenery, essentially, because a lot of times, that can make the difference. And now we would of course tell people the same idea, but go focus on your breathing, for a couple minutes if you can, and try to, like, if you go into the bathroom, like, even go into a stall to where you'll be left alone for a couple of minutes, and just try to focus on your breathing so that you can essentially recenter, and sometimes that works, sometimes it's, you need more than that.
Yeah. That's where it was, for me, it was a little bit of a lesson, like, I still do have some work to do.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I'm not an accountant like I thought I wanted to be.
Right. Yeah. I used to run into it after a while because, again, being in school for graphic design, some of the classes are literally like, here are pages of information, basically create a brochure. And
Wow.
sometimes here's graphic elements. Other times it's basically, nope, all text. Like create an interesting looking, thing to be handed out at a business meeting, which means you can't make it look, you can't put lots of exciting things in it because it's basically financial information.
Yeah.
You have to lay it out in a manner that it's not boring, but you can't put a lot of graphic devices in it or pictures of people jumping around or, a bunch of colors. It's still got to look very professional, so you're pretty much just staring at numbers, and I'm basically doing data entry, but not just that. I'm also just moving bodies of text around, and I'm doing it for hours and hours trying to, it's mind numbing at times. But that's the job, and it's, and there were times where I'd, hit save and, eject the disk I had everything saved on, and I'd walk outside for a little bit. I'd be at the computer labs late at night, and I'd just go sit outside. There'd be other students out there smoking, and I'd just sit outside with them for 15, 20 minutes or something, because you just have to get your head out of it for a little bit, because not quite the same thing, but it was just so mind-numbing,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand a little bit. It's not quite the same thing, but I certainly get it.
For me, it's surprising because I just don't have those types of feelings anymore. And that, like, it's like the walls are closing in on me.
Yeah.
And it's all consuming.
Right.
Where I was like, I can't just breathe this out. I am like, even though I got up and started moving around, it was like I needed to go do something else to put it out of my head.
Yeah.
I go, and actually now that we're talking about it, I'm gonna, if I end up doing that again, which I'm inevitably going to, usually with music projects, I have to do a lot of editing at some point. I'll have to try that if I start getting that feeling, if I can just breathe through it.
Yeah. Do you get it when you do editing for music too?
I do, yeah. If it's like a lot of just,
so it's not just text; it's any computer work.
It's it's anything sitting in front of a computer, just repeating yourself.
Okay. Now, let me ask one more question. If you were to say take your laptop out, or say you were doing it on a laptop, if you were outside, is it still the same thing?
That's a good question. I've never tried it.
Just again, curious. I just wonder if you were like in front of a window versus, like a wall, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like if I had like my tablet and I had the music project on there and I was going through and just clipping ends, because that's what I do just to make tracks sound cleaner as I go through and clip the beginnings and the, just so there's no noise in between, and and especially with vocal takes, I'm literally clipping at the beginning and the end of every phrase.
Oh yeah.
And it's long and tedious, and I do a lot of vocal tracks usually.
right, yeah.
And yes, there's software that does it for you, but I don't like where it'll cut it off sometimes or whatever. So I'll have to think about that as the next time I'm doing that. It's like, okay, what if you went outside and did it? Would it change? And then if it does start to hit, can I just center myself without having to go outside? Because if I can do that, that's a great tool. If I can get over one part of, because that's really the only anxiety I have, that would be routine.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like a life event kind of anxiety where it's normal, but where it's like this is a little unusual. That'd be a good skill for me to have. So, because more than likely then when I do have legitimate anxiety, from, when something's, the snake comes across your path.
Yeah. Right.
That scares you. That's normal fear.
Right.
Yeah. Can I also get through this with breathing? Yeah.
That's why I was just curious. There was a woman that was in one of my classes the last time I was in school that worked for her. Was she moved her computer in front of a window, and she said after doing that, because she had that issue, which her computer was in front of a wall, and she said just looking essentially with her peripheral, only seeing the wall, she didn't. She needed an exit essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
And she said when she moved it in front of a window, she had that out, and she said it made a huge difference for her. So.
That's a great observation because that's how I feel. I feel claustrophobic.
Yeah, that's kind of that's why I was like, I wonder if that would make any difference. Yeah.
Yeah, if I shifted to a window instead. Huh.
Or she said that at work she has a they make those like posters or whatever that look like, like you're looking at out a window.
Yeah.
She has one of those at work that she said helped her a little. She said it's still not as good, but she said it's better than just white wall. So she said that helped too. So I don't know. Maybe that'll help someone listening, if you have some issues with it. Yeah. So I don't know.
I have a psychological science report that this is another one of those ones that I know you're going to be surprised.
All right.
It's going to be shocking.
Okay.
I know this is going to fry your tree. It's going to blow you away.
Okay.
With this.
All right.
July 13th, 2016.
Uh-huh.
Regular cocaine and methamphetamine users can have difficulty choosing between right and wrong. Mic drop. Title: Drug use may hamper moral judgment.
Huh.
Yeah. Who'da thunk it?
Who'da
thunk it?
Breaking news on that one.
I know.
Wow.
We are shattering the boundaries here. I mean, you thought the last science episode was good where we talked about discovering the cure for Alzheimer's?
Right?
No.
Drug
use can affect moral judgment.
Wow. I wonder if the police know that. I'm sure they don't know that yet.
But
they should look after try to find some drug users.
It's there is something actually really good for this, at least from an addiction standpoint. This was a study of prison inmates, and it's about what happens to your brain, your moral processing, and your ability to evaluate emotions when you've been doing drugs for a long time.
Right.
So I think it is actually a very important study.
Right. That it's more the long term, like even after you've quit using it, that your brain
that you
still doesn't.
Have this.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
right.
And so and linking this with criminal behavior because moral judgments. And also about how you relate to other people, because they looked at kind of some of the distorted thinking, and antisocial behaviors that become, inability to feel empathy for other people and all that kind of stuff, and whether that was, from the drug use or not.
Interesting.
And how it affected their brain function. So it was in the end, it was one of those ones where at first you're just like, wow, really? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then as you look at it, you go, no, this is really important because this will help, especially if you're more likely to have criminal behavior because you've had a lifetime of drug abuse, and you're more likely to have, and I don't mean just criminal behavior, like you don't know right from wrong stealing, but I mean also spousal abuse or that kind of thing.
Well, yeah.
If you can't identify other people's emotions, fears, and that kind of stuff, and show empathy, you're likely to end up in a lot of conflicts. And then if you don't know right or wrong, you could lash out really poorly. Yeah. So if people are going to end up in jail because of this. Yeah. And then it can continue on.
Sure.
I think it's something worth knowing.
Oh, it definitely is. Because, I mean, even if you used those drugs for a while, say you got caught, did some jail time, got out of jail, and were clean from that point, how long, you know what I mean? Like, how long does this affect your brain change? How long does this change your brain? If it's a very long term, could you be essentially still likely to commit to other, because at that point, can this be fixed? Or, can it be changed?
Good question.
You be rehabilitated?
We want to release you out to society and say you're rehabilitated and give you the best chance possible, where you really don't have a chance because you're just going to fail again.
Absolutely. So this is definitely important to look into. Because if it can be reversed at some point or overcome, then certainly let's look at that. Let's see if that can be done. And if so, then that would be truly rehabilitating. And that, that would be important,
Yeah. This actually, a lot of this ties in with my boss, who did have a lifetime of stimulant abuse, and that it may have damaged his brain, over the years, because they're really looking at where in the brain the activity is happening. And I know from, like, for me, I had some physiological changes from not being a daily drinker. It took about 6 months before I started to notice that certain changes were happening.
Yeah.
But for people that use opiates and stimulants, it can affect their brain chemistry for up to a year.
Right.
And that's a long time to have your brain not providing the, proper endorphins to make you feel good. You're more likely to go back to that thing that made you feel good.
Right.
That's why it's so much harder for drug users. But now, if even beyond that, you've done damage to your brain structure, now you're getting hit again.
Yeah.
That even though you've stopped, your endorphins are finally starting to come back again because your brain's saying, oh, okay, well, you're not making them for me, so I have to make them myself again. All right, you're starting to feel better, but you find that some of your decision-making skills aren't so good because you've literally done damage to a part of your brain.
Right.
So that's, it's an interesting read, because once again, it reminds me that the brain is still such an unexplored territory.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't. And anytime that if they can find whether it's a medicine that can help with this or a therapy that can help with one thing, you never know where it might lead to help other.
That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you never know that. And that's the other thing, is this could be useful for someone who, because the other thing I was thinking is when you have kids who have potentially like, I don't know, like issues with, I don't know how this would translate. Again, not a doctor, but maybe situations with like where their parents did drugs while they were being born. It makes you wonder, like, if there was any brain stuff, or
there was already damage.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did drugs when they were a kid, while their brain was still forming or something, or, while they different stuff, like, it just makes you wonder, like you were saying, like, where else can this be applied to? Because it makes you really stop and think about, and that's always the part is it's like and that's the way a lot of the science stuff works. It always gets developed in one area, but then it's like, well, can we apply this to this, and that's where a lot of this stuff really comes to fruition. There's so many times where something will be developed for one thing, and maybe it's not the key to the lock there, but they just happen to, hey, you know what? This might work over here, and then boom, and it'll blow the doors off of something else. So,
yeah. Or you get a brain scan and they go, oh, you know what this looks like? This looks like the brain scan of those inmates who'd been doing methamphetamine their whole lives.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, maybe we should try that treatment on you.
Right.
Because your brain activity resembles something that's already been studied before.
Right, exactly.
And that's huge.
Maybe this will work on somebody with like mild brain damage from traumatic events or something like that. Or, who knows? I'm just throwing stuff out there. Like I said, just, whatever. So yeah, that.
Well, and this is not to get political, but this is what Obama was talking about at the memorial in Dallas when he specifically brought up that we need to put more money into mental illness.
Yeah.
We're not talking about giving people free drugs. We're talking about research here.
Yeah.
Talk about doing more research, that there needs to be more research into these types of things.
Yeah.
And and how it affects people, whether it's PTSD, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people resist it because they think, oh, it's just, giving people free clinics to go get mental health evaluations. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about research for the long term. We're talking about investing.
And a lot of it really is a lot of it's research to really understand the effects of these things and long term in the brain and
Mhm.
what causes some of these, or what causes people who seemingly are perfectly fine to all of a sudden not be.
Yep.
You know, like, why are people who are seemingly happy and fine 3 or 4 years later, all of a sudden they can't get out of bed anymore? You know, like, why, what snapped, what changed?
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah,
What changed?
exactly. So, you know, that's why these things are so important, you know, because it's just people, these things are changing in people. Or, you know, how many times do you hear on the news, oh, they seem perfectly fine and happy, I never heard anything, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know, you hear something else on somebody. And I don't mean like the full on like sociopaths or something like that, you know, or
No.
you know, those kind of deals, but it's just some of this other stuff. You just, you know, how many times have you heard that with somebody? It's just, you know, even the guy in Dallas, you know, like, people for a long time, oh, I didn't think he would do anything like that, but then this, you know, put him over the edge or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, but, you know, why would this put him over the edge? Why would this happen? Or why would this happen? And it's, you know, we need to study people and try to find out all we can as to why are people's brains so delicate at times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's about discovering remedies, and yeah, everyone loves to just say it. It's like, oh, well, we need to deal with the mental health in the country. Well, yeah, but do you really know, and are you willing to accept what that takes? It takes money.
Yeah,
you know?
and really, it's like the only time that's getting said is when somebody shoots a bunch of people up. It's like, no, it's similar to saying, you know, we need to do something about the hungry people in this country, but it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. You know, it's like, no, people are hungry all the time in this country. You know, it's like, that's not just an issue this time or this time. It's like, no, there's people that are mentally ill or have all these issues all the time. And the thing is that money needs to come in for these things so we can understand a lot of this. And, you know, that's why, like you said, that's why this stuff is so important. So it's, you know, people need, that's why, you know, there's advocacy groups that are going out and trying to, again, dispel the myths that are out there about this. This isn't just about like crazy people that go into places and shoot people. That's not what mental illness is. And stop, you know, if you watch the news, that's what they would basically make you believe mental illness is.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth. I have a mental illness. I'm not going to walk into a place and shoot anybody up. There are tons and tons and tons of people that are like me. I just have trouble getting out of bed every day. That's my mental illness. There are people like me. Yeah. There's some that have it way worse than I do. There's some that have it easier than I do. You know, but there's that we, you know, we are the face of most mental illnesses. You know, they are the extremes. True. The ones on the news are the extremes.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. Most of the people and most of the work that needs to be done is just to give people the ability to lead a normal life again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that most people want.
Yeah.
Is to just feel somewhat like we, you know, like to air quote, normal, whatever that means.
Right, yeah. To just be productive members of society again.
Yeah. Because I know that everyone
don't want to lay in bed every day.
Yeah, because I know everyone, you know, loves to point the fingers and demonize just a bunch of bums and welfare, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've met a lot of people on welfare that did not want to be on welfare. They didn't like it. Yeah. They just wanted a job.
Yeah.
You know, I've hired people that were in that position.
I mean, look, nobody wants to go to work. Nobody. Like, most people would rather just wake up and go, my bills are paid and taken care of, and we'd all love to live in a state where you just get a salary and you can just live and do whatever you want to do. Yeah. But again, it's like, you know, when I tell people, oh, what do you do for a living? I'd be like, I don't work. And I get people that, it must be nice. But like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly.
Do I like the fact that I don't work? Yeah, except that most people gather a big amount of what their self-worth is from the fact that they go out and they're productive members of society and they get a paycheck based on that. I can't. I was telling Heno earlier. There's a concert coming to the area in a couple of weeks. Right now, if I look at my bank account, I don't have enough to buy a ticket. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people out there that go to work every day that can say the exact same thing I just said. Right. There's almost no chance that will change for me. And it isn't about the concert, right? I need a new pair of shoes. Can't go do that either. Now, a lot of people go, well, why don't you go on welfare? I don't qualify for welfare. Luckily, I'm in a position that I can live with my mom. Otherwise, maybe I would qualify for welfare. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's not as easy as people may seem to think it is. You have to jump through a ton of hoops. People don't believe me. I sit through things. I've talked to people. I was treated like absolute garbage, which I believe I documented on this show about how I went to a caseworker and she treated me like I was scum on her shoe because I was asking for help. So it's not as simple as people make it sound. I'm not a person who has ever shied away from working in my life, but I can't right now. I want to get to that point. I'm working in therapy. I'm trying to get myself better. I just need some help until I can get to a point that I can do this. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for any amount of money to get rich or anything like that. I just like to be able to contribute a little bit in the household for groceries or to be able to buy a pair of shoes, kind of a thing. Yeah. You know, that's what I'm looking for at the moment. And, you know, and I'm tired of hearing people that don't believe us. You know, these are the things that need to change. So when people hear this stuff, you know, everybody knows somebody who's got depression or bipolar or, you know, something, anxiety. Everybody knows somebody. I probably has one of those three things, you know. If you don't, you're probably not talking to your friends enough.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you know, I know so many people with one of the three, you know, so anyway, enough of that. But
yeah, it's become very apparent to me when I'm, you know, communicating on whether it's social media or in person, it either way is, and this is also part of the distorted thinking, is being completely unable to empathize with other people, or this denial of somebody else's experiences, thoughts, or feelings.
Yes.
And I see a lot of that. It goes along with this black and white thinking, and it goes down the list of distorted thinking. And these aren't necessarily, these aren't mental disorders.
Right.
But what they are is behavioral disorders. Yeah. These are still behavioral disorders. And it's kind of tough to, you know, I just sit there and go, how are we going to get people help when other people want to deny your own experience?
Yeah.
And you sit there and you say, this is what I experienced. This is what I went through. And they flat out just say, nah, you're just lazy.
Yeah.
Or you're just this, or you have no willpower.
Yeah. And it's because they can't see it. You know, if my knee was all busted up, you could look at my knee and go, wow, your knee's a mess. You know, but you can't see inside my head to see that my head is a mess. Now, what's funny about it is if you've known me for any length of time and spent any time with me over that time, you should be able to see the difference in me over those years, you know? And those who have done that see the difference. You talk to Tony, who's my co-host on Salty Language, my best friend. He sees the difference. His wife, Jeannie, who has spent a large amount of time with me, she sees the difference. Jen, the co-host on the show here, she has seen the difference. Those who have been very close to me can tell you the difference in me 10 years ago to now, or 20 years ago to now. You know what I mean? But it's those ones who come in and out of my life that are the ones that are like, oh, it doesn't seem that bad to me. And it's like, yeah, because you don't see me enough. You know, and that's why I can't understand. And it's so tough because in a lot of these cases, the people making decisions on your behalf or in ways are the ones, they don't spend any time with you. They have no idea. And then they get to make a judgment on you, or they do make a judgment on you based on 10 minutes they spend with you. You know, and it's like, how dare you? You know, I mean, literally, how dare you? You don't know anything about me. And it's like, I would love for the ability to turn the tables on that person. Be like, tell me something that's really bothering you, and then just be brutal about it back to them. You know, just brutal, and just be like, how did that make you feel? Be like, wow, that feels really awful. Be like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
now do you get it? That's what I go through all the time. That's what people with this go through. I mean, even Heno, he could tell somebody he's a recovering alcoholic, and a lot of people don't believe that exists. There's tons of people that don't believe alcoholism's a disease. They don't buy into that,
Yeah, they don't buy into that thinking. Yeah.
Now
It's a choice.
Right. Now, and then there's also a group that'll look at him and be like, oh, you're so brave, or you're whatever, or they'll congratulate you on 9 years, which, is great. But you know what I mean? It's so weird. Like I wrote that blog, about putting on pants, and people don't realize how much of a victory that freaking is for people with depression sometimes. And that was why I wrote that blog, and, those kind of things. And I've had so many people with depression reach out to me and go, yes, I get it. Like, thank you for writing that. I've shared that with this person and this right? And I've had other people reach out to me and go, I don't get it. You put on pants. And I'm like, yeah, the funny part is, truly it was written for those people, but you're not there yet. I hope that people get there someday, but they don't get it. I don't know what else I can do. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I can try. Yeah.
Well, that was what I was kind of thinking about, is like my challenge for everyone listening this week is keep that in mind this week when if somebody's telling a story, or if someone's sharing their experience, believe them, listen to them.
Right.
Don't deny their thoughts and feelings, and see what it does. See if it changes you in any way, because it's changed me a lot, and I'd like to think it's changed me for the better.
Yeah.
It's made me a better listener. It's made me a little more accepting. It's made me a little less judgmental. And overall, I seem to be happier this way.
Right. Absolutely. Well, like you said last week when we were talking about jealousy, anytime someone says to you, I feel this way, realistically, when someone does that to you, they're dropping their walls because they are laying out a vulnerability at that point. And if you do anything but listen and basically accept that is how they feel at that point. I mean, I don't know how to word it any other way. You're being a jerk at that point. I mean, you really are. I mean, they're laying an ultimate vulnerability at your feet. And if you do anything other than say, at the bare minimum, I accept that you feel that way because you're telling me you feel that way. I mean, that's at least at the bare minimum say, okay, I get it. You feel that way. Like, that's anything less than that is really you just dismissing them as a person. Yep. It really is. And we all have our fights. Like, every one of us has an experience that other people essentially would feel is ridiculous. We all feel something that other people would laugh at, or whatever. And I don't know, you feel silly, you feel stupid, you feel this, and it's like, look, I feel like there's a 300-pound weight on me every day when I wake up. You may not feel that way, and listen, if you do feel that or don't feel that way, I am so happy for you. And I say that with zero sarcasm. I do not wish this on anyone. If you can spring out of bed and just boom right into getting your coffee and ready for work, that's awesome. But there's a lot that can't. And for those that can't, try to be allies. And, because there's a lot of really good people that just, they just need a little hand once in a while, that's all. But yeah, you brought up the cognitive thinking, and you were kind of talking about going into that a little bit more. 'Cause we brought it up in the past. But it's one of those things that I think is a good thing to refresh a lot. Because again, I bring it up as we're talking because a lot of people will associate it with depression, anxiety, that kind of thing. And it certainly certainly goes hand in hand with mental illness, but it also appears a lot in just everyday people in everyday life, undiagnosed people, people who absolutely don't have mental illnesses, just people who their environment sometimes can kind of just thrust it on you over time. You know, it can reframe you if you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you just spend enough time in a negative environment, I mean, you can look it up. Science will reframe you. Or not science, I mean, your environment will reframe you, you know. That's why they tell people if you have issues with depression and you realize your friends are all negative, try to be around them less, basically, you know. Try to be around more positive people. It'll help your overall set. You know, it's one of those situations that, and again, it doesn't have to be work. It can be family, friends, whatever. And like I was telling Henno, one of the things I've realized is as I'm trying to work on myself about this, I've realized at times where me being around this has kind of shaped me, you know, and added to me being that way at times. And so one of the things I've been working on really hard is when I kind of catch myself doing it, I try to pull myself back out of it.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do, you know, because sometimes the environment itself and the people in that environment are all worst case scenario or whatever. And it's tough to be that one person who's not, you know, trying to go, hey, you know, it's not that bad. And everyone else is like, well, actually it is that bad. And you're like, it's really not.
It's
Because,
really not.
or to just be quiet, because if you keep saying, well, it really isn't, then it becomes an argument, you know? So what do you got on that sheet there? I don't know.
Oh, so,
Or list, whatever.
and what did I just do with it?
He threw it away.
Dummy. I was getting rid of my drug use mayhem.
Well, I guess it wasn't that important. Henno decided to scrap it.
Yeah, no. Oh, here, let's use our new fancy schmancy trick that brings up your phone on your computer. I love this. Yeah. There, I have it now.
All right. Convenient.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right, so these were 15 common cognitive distortions.
Mm-hmm.
And number one is, I'm just going to just name them all off because I'm sure you've already gone into a lot of them. And if there's something that jumps out, we should maybe talk about. But
okay.
1, filtering.
Mm-hmm.
2, polarized thinking, black and white.
Yep.
3, overgeneralization. 4, jumping to conclusions. 5, catastrophizing.
It's such a tough word to say. It almost just looks like a fake word.
It does, actually.
Yeah.
6, personalization. 7, control fallacies. 8, fallacy of fairness. 9, blaming. 10, shoulds. 11, emotional reasoning. 12, fallacy of change. 13, global labeling. 14, always being right. And 15, heaven's reward fallacy, which is one I'd never heard before.
I haven't either. Can you read? Does it have an example of that one?
It says, we expect our sacrifice and self-denial to pay off as if someone is keeping score. We feel bitter when the reward doesn't come.
Okay, now so essentially a karma situation.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, I
like I think it's even more than in karma. It's more like you're like earning.
Yeah.
I've earned the universe's respect, so to speak.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Why does God hate me?
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Look. Don't you know who I am?
Yeah, right. You should send me that link, I know.
I'll send you that. Yeah. And this was from a Reddit page.
Cool.
But there were a lot on here that I thought were great. Yeah, we should put this in there. Some of them were just fallacy of fairness. We feel resentful because we think we know what is fair, but other people won't agree with us.
Sure. Because realistically, fairness is perspective based.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. What's fair to me is not going to be fair to someone else. Well, why did they get the job? I worked as hard as they do. And then that other person goes, dude, I'm working 60 hours a week. You're only putting in 40. But maybe they don't realize that, you don't realize that they are putting in those 60 hours or whatever it is, or that they're doing X amount of, whatever it is. Fairness is relative. It is so, It's so funny.
One of the things
we learn as little kids, we're told all the time, life isn't fair.
Life
and we
isn't fair.
never,
It even
ever,
says that in here.
ever full on accept it. We tell little kids all the time, well, get used to it. Life isn't fair. And then as adults, we say the words, that's not fair, so often.
Yeah. It even says it here that as our parents told us when we were growing up, if something doesn't go your way, life isn't always fair. People who go through life applying a measuring ruler against every situation, judging its fairness, will often feel badly and negative because of it.
Yep.
Because life isn't fair. I started watching Mr. Robot this week.
Yeah, I keep meaning to start that. I think I'm going to start that here in a couple days.
Yeah, you got to do it.
I've heard it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was when you were talking about the places that when you were really in in your bad space or whatever you want to call it, and with your anxiety and kind of social awkwardness or whatever you want to call it, social anxiety and various other things that you were. And it's on, a lot of them are on this list, which is why they jumped out at me. The focusing on everything negative, focusing on these catastrophizing, magnifying the tiniest things, or overgeneralizing. One of them on here that I loved was where was it? A global labeling. We generalize one or two qualities into a negative global judgment, which is a great way to stay unhappy if you want to.
For sure, yeah.
But in the show, the protagonist starts basically demonstrating these thought patterns as he's sitting in therapy.
Yeah,
because he's in with his therapist, and he's wicked smart. But it was all the stuff you described, and I was like, wow, doing this podcast has made certain show. I shared this on Moving the Needle this last weekend, the podcast I'm on, and we were talking about the show, and I was also talking about Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson one, and how when like if you're a firefighter and you watch a show that's based on firefighters, you go, oh, that's not true, or that's not, or oh, they're really pushing here, or like for me as an alcoholic, when they start like in the protagonist is starts going to AA meetings, and they portray meetings in a certain way, and I'm sitting there going, that's not what it's like, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is with both of these shows, Mr. Robot and Love and Mercy, I'm sitting there watching and going, wow, they're nailing this.
Yeah.
Because of this podcast, because I've heard your experiences and I believe them.
Right.
I believe, and then to see it on TV and they're doing it the exact same way, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like then all of a sudden it starts to click, like we talk about this all the time, like, okay, you know what? I know people that have always been like this, and maybe they do have something going on. It's not that they're just negative all the time, that they have social anxieties or whatever, and so these have become their little tools to get through the day, these cognitive distortions.
And that's the thing though too, is that's the deal, is that even if they don't have a mental illness, a lot of people will use cognitive distortions, or they develop them over time. And again, a lot of people will develop them at work, because again, especially certain ones like the fairness one, or worst case scenarios, black and white type things, because at work there's right and there's wrong, there's no gray area. That's kind of, a lot of places will tell you that, even though that's not true. Generally in life, almost everything in life resides in the gray area. Really what you find in life is that very little resides in the black and the white. Most things reside in the gray area, and the things that are in the black and white are very much the don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, but even then, if you really truly break it down, think about it. A lot of killing someone still kind of resides in the gray area. Was it self-defense? Was it a crime of passion? Was it, you still can kind of reside in the gray area for a little bit until you get to a certain point and they go, oh no, that was just straight out murder, and it's like, now we're into that's black and white. That's wrong, so it's, and then that's the thing with these. And like we talked on the last episode, when you take this worksheet, what it allows you to do is strip away the emotion. It allows you to strip away the I don't want to say lies. That seems like the wrong word here, but it allows you to strip away everything but actual fact. Then you can look at the situation factually and go, okay, now that I'm looking at just the facts on this situation, I can assess, is it the worst thing in the world? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now that the hyperbole has been removed from it.
Yeah. This takes us back to this idea of sharpening our intuition.
Yes.
Our intuition is boxing with one hand tied behind your back if all you do is live in polarized thinking.
Yes.
If you only, because it's easier, because it is easier. It is easier to just believe everything's a certain way. Living in the middle, living in the gray is not easy.
No.
It's not easy. It requires, there's balance to it. Mm-hmm. And most of us, we don't want to put in that kind of effort. But what's great about it that I've learned, this is my experience, by finally accepting the fact that most things are somewhat in the middle, when I do find things in my personality or beliefs, and it could be personal beliefs, it could be political beliefs or whatever it is, when I find one that for me is to the extreme, I accept it a lot easier and I know what to do with it because I've spent enough time in the middle learning how to see things from both sides and realize that my intuition says, no, this one's a no-go. Mm-hmm. This is not me having polarized thinking. This is me finding my boundaries. And these are important, especially for people that suffer from, they're not in good relationships. They suffer from low self-esteem or the things we talked about last week with jealousy, where you're in a situation, you need to get out of it. It's hard to find your boundaries if you don't know, you can't tell the difference between right and wrong. Yeah. If all you've lived in is one extreme, you're going to think this is normal. This is how it's supposed to be. I deserve this.
Exactly. Yeah. If you live in wrong, essentially, everything is wrong. Yeah.
Everything is wrong. Versus if you can pull yourself out of that and get to the point where you can actually start to weigh these things with some sort of clarity and not just, I'm talking emotional clarity too, then you can finally find that place where you say, you know what? No, I don't accept this.
Yeah.
That for me in our 12 step, that's step 0 is when you say, I don't accept this. Yeah. And I start my journey out of,
right. Exactly.
And I think that's where these cognitive distortions, the knowledge of this can really be effective.
And I'll be honest, I don't think anything really woke me up and changed my thinking towards my depression more than these things did. Because when she gave me those sheets and she said, I really want you to read them. Whenever you have a negative thought, I want you to look at this sheet. I want you to go, do any of these apply?
Yeah.
And if so, use the worksheet because on the worksheet that I have, it says, here's how to basically reverse it, how to reframe, And she goes, and I want you to do that. She goes, even if you have to pull the sheet out every time you have one of these thoughts, I want you to, the worksheets recommend writing it down. But again, I'm not one of those. I'm not a write it down. Like I can do the work in my head. I'm fully 100%, even though I know the problem with me, it's all in my head, but I'm very capable of doing, I'm capable of fighting the fight on two fronts at the same time. So, so I was like, look, I'm going to do it this way. And she was okay with it. She was like, as long, we'll just keep talking about it. So, and that's what I've been doing is when I realize I'm doing it, basically, like I've been over the sheets enough now that I kind of have them in my head, so it's when I have the thought, apply it to the sheet. Does it, send a red flag up? If so, how do I reframe it? Can I reframe it? And if so, then reattach it. Or if for some reason that doesn't seem to work for me, then do the worst case scenario concept, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? And then run down that ridiculous line, because that is really what ends up happening is you start asking ridiculous questions and you end up getting to a place that's so silly almost that you're like, why am I asking these questions? Like if someone else, if I were asking these of someone else, they would look at me and go, you're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, that should be the red flag, essentially, Would someone else look at me and laugh almost, it's
exactly.
like, oh yeah, you're right. I am being ridiculous, Yeah.
So, well, here's a good challenge and this is simple. So if we put this link on with the show notes, these are 15 cognitive distortions. Mm-hmm. All they are is a way to identify thought patterns these are thought patterns and that can be changed, or emotional, whatever you want to call it, reactions. This week, if you start to feel, if you're getting into a negative space, if you find that you're being overly pessimistic, if you're absolutely unable to see the silver lining in the cloud, or find that positive, take a look at these 15 and read through them and see if you can identify if any of them sit with you. Don't even worry about solutions. Just start with identification.
Just start there. Yeah. Well, you remember, I think it was the last time you and I recorded together. Remember when we did the Doing the Work episode?
Yeah.
And I brought up that one guy who, remember his therapist was like every negative thought he had to use this idea. Yeah.
Same deal. And and see if one of these apply to you.
Yep.
Because the good news about that is if you can relate to one item on these 15, that's one thing that you can change in your life. That's one thing that you can bring a new outlook, where you can put on a new pair of glasses and see the world maybe a little bit differently, because you've identified one of your thought processes that has a solution.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it can really make a difference. Like if you've listened to the show from the beginning and you've heard me to now, and you've at any point gone, wow, Brian seems changed about this or this or this, these are why. Like these really have been where I've tried to make my changes, because there's a lot of these. I said it when we first brought these up, I am so guilty of almost every one of these things. There's a few on there that don't apply to me, but I mean, of the 15, there's probably a good 12 that I'm very guilty of. And again, a lot of them, if you took that sheet and applied it to everyone there's at least, I don't know, there's at least one, I know 100%. There's at least one that everybody does, Like you won't find one person who doesn't do any of them. Everyone does different ones on there. But again, that's not a diagnosis thing. It's just the fact that we all tend to do some of these. But again, don't worry about other people. Just apply it to yourself. But it is it's kind of an eye opener, to really look at this sheet, study it. If you can study it to where you kind of remember them, and then catch yourself. 'Cause if you'll catch yourself doing it. And again, the place you'll probably catch yourself doing it the most is going to be at work.
At work, yep.
It will be.
And for me, I know I can sound preachy and sometimes arrogant about this stuff but the fact of the matter is it's my experience.
Yeah.
And I get a little bit up on the old pedestal and start preaching about this stuff because I believe it, because I went into work, one day and I started to do something and I went, that's messed up. Like, why would you do that? Okay. All right. Next time, let's try not to do that.
Right.
And it was literally just it was the sabotaging one where I go and someone asked me to help them and I turn around and I, go tell somebody else how dumb they are,
Yeah.
And I started to do that. I was like, I started to walk in and actually, I did it. What I did is I went and helped somebody, and then I turned around and said, God, can you believe this guy? He doesn't even know how to do this.
Right.
And I was like, wow, you just assassinated someone's character for no reason whatsoever than to prop yourself up, make you feel slightly superior.
Right.
how does that feel? Does that feel good? I was like, no, it doesn't. So the next time I went and was asked to do something helpful for them and they said, thank you. I said, you're welcome. And I walked away feeling good about being of service and left it at that.
Right.
And so that's why I get a little fired up about this stuff, is because I was able to do this and it made me feel better.
Right.
And I was less angry and I was less resentful, because every time I practice sarcasm, I create an opportunity to hold more resentment. Every time I practice character assassination, I create more opportunities to be resentful. And the more resentful I am, I just become a bitter human.
Yeah.
Who likes that?
Well, and that's the thing, is when you went in there the way you did, like, I could pretty much, I mean, you really could say that you used, or that you were doing two things on the distorted thinking worksheet. And one was you were essentially being controlling because you wanted to correct them.
Mm-hmm,
You wanted to change their behavior, and you also had a need to be correct.
Yeah, the always being right.
Yes. So, you could say that you were trying to do two of those things.
Yep.
So, and like I said, it's that simple. And neither were necessarily your goals, but there you go. It's that easy to just go, and how many people do that? I used to do that stuff all the time. Somebody would frustrate me because of whatever, and I'd want to be like, and I would do it by like, get out of the way. I'll show you how to do it right. I wouldn't even say like whatever. I would say, get out of the way. I'll show you how to do it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and you're doing just blaming is right on there. We hold other people responsible for our pain. Mm-hmm. See what you're making me do?
Yeah.
You're making me have to show you how to do stuff because you don't know how to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than going, hey, let me show you how to do this. Yeah. I'm happy to.
Right.
Let me educate. Let me offer some of my experience because maybe you asked me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Oh man.
No, it was all with just oozing sarcasm.
oh yeah, just dripping in sarcasm.
That's why I said it was.
Here, let me. Yeah.
Yep. That's why I said it's so easy to do, and you'll see it. Like I said, even if you learn these things, you'll start noticing. Like I said, do not worry about applying these to others, but you'll just see it. You'll just inadvertently start noticing it. The better the 15 things or whatever, you'll just start seeing it in others. But again, don't get caught up in trying to change others, because again, that's on the worksheet. But
that's in there too, yeah. Fallacy of change.
Yep. But it's like I said, just worry about changing you. But it's and again, don't get obsessed with them either. Don't be like, I have to do this. I have to, don't get to that point either. But they're just good things, because a lot of these they lead to negative behaviors. They lead to like Heno said, holding resentments and holding in anger toward people, or just holding in anger of any kind because, like the world is against me, or this is the worst thing to ever happen to the world, or why do bad things only happen to me, or, whatever it is. It's, it's not, none of it's true. It's all just, it's perspective. Bad things happen to people. Sometimes bad things happen to people in large quantities. It's unfortunate. It is. It sucks. I've been there, but it's, you just have to keep trying to push through. It's not easy.
Yeah. And one of the things that I relate to this to typically back pain.
Yes.
Usually we're not going out and breaking our back or having something so catastrophic. It's usually when, most people that I know that suddenly get a, kink in their neck or something like that, they were doing something rather simple.
Yeah.
They were doing something like lifting up their dog or helping their, moving a box or shifting a ladder, whatever it is, because back injuries tend to be cumulative. There are lots of little ones that slowly build up over time. Well, I believe the same thing happens when we start carrying resentments around. Mm-hmm. There's lots of little ones, and they just build up until finally something happens and everything comes out sideways.
Yeah.
It wasn't that one event. That wasn't it. I guarantee that there was a whole bunch of little ones that were all building up to it. Ones that you just kind of went, oh, well, that kind of bothered me. Oh, I'm fine. oh, that kind of bothered me. Oh, I'm fine. You
Mhm.
didn't deal with it. You
Mhm.
just stored it away. And eventually they built up enough and you did that one little action and your back went out.
Yeah.
Or in this case, your mouth goes off.
Right.
Which is usually was my case.
Yeah, mine
And,
too.
You know, it's this whole idea of it, the last straw.
Yeah.
Well, is it really, you know, is the problem really the last straw? It was like, you know, I thought the problem was the 13th shot. No, it was the first shot. It was not the 13th drink. You know, like, man, if you guys had just kept me from the tequila, I would have been fine. Well, no, maybe you would have kept me from that first beer. You know?
Oh man, I've heard that. I have heard that
Yeah.
story so many times too. Like, you guys should have kept me away from the whiskey. You know, it makes me mean. It's like, dude, you pounded 12 beers, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you hit the whiskey. It wasn't the
then-
whiskey. It was
yeah.
the whole night of drinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if we had just let you have 4 shots of whiskey, you wouldn't have done the same thing. You know. Like,
Yeah, but I really do believe the same thing goes with, you know, like that's the last straw. It's like,
Yeah.
no, there was a first straw somewhere along the line that
Yeah.
didn't get dealt with too.
right. It was the culmination of all the straws. It
that,
wasn't
yeah.
the last straw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah, because usually the last one is actually probably kind of minor.
Right.
You know, we've been building stuff
Right.
up, and so, you know, I think that's something worth keeping a look at. Is like, are you holding in resentments? Are you holding in these things? Are you finding, you know, are there cognitive distortions that are making you act negatively, and are those negative things building up to where you finally it comes off sideways?
And you're right, because again, if you use these tools to learn to deal with individual situations better, to where each one of these things that maybe aren't fair, maybe if fair is a thing that exists, then maybe things aren't fair, because that is life.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, but you deal with it on a better way each time. Maybe it takes twice
Great
as long
point.
for it to build up, or 3 times as long. At least maybe it'll,
Great
you know,
point.
you know.
Yeah, I share that with some of my friends a lot, and people that I you know I talk to. I'll sit there and say, well, you know what, how you're feeling, you know, you're right. You shouldn't have been treated that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now what?
Yeah.
You know, now what? What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
So you can either be miserable, or you can let it go and move on.
Yeah,
you know, or
'cause-
find out a way that you can put it into it, change your perspective on it, and get on with your day. Or you can hold this in for the rest of this weekend, especially like when something happens at work on a Friday. Yeah, you can hold this in all weekend if you want,
And
and come into work on Monday and still be miserable.
Yeah.
Or you can just let this stuff go, because your point is well made. It's like, you're right. You know, these things do actually happen.
Yeah.
Things do happen but it's up to us how we handle
Yeah.
them.
It's, yeah. And that's, like I said, you know, for a lot of people like me, I, for a long time, would be that person that it would ruin my whole weekend, you know? And I would go into work the next day and it would ruin that day, and it would ruin the next week, or whenever I worked with that person that maybe didn't give me a raise or a promotion or whatever, it would ruin every time I saw him, and I would harbor that resentment and I would hold the grudge, you know?
Yeah.
And then eventually I just started getting with people to where I'm like, I started the whole, like Jen mentioned last time, that whole taking your power back part. And it was like, I am giving this person all of this power that, first of all, they don't even realize they hold. And second of all, they don't care that they hold.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't want it. They didn't ask for it. They didn't try to take it.
Yeah.
They don't want it. So
they're thinking of their own stuff.
Yeah, like it's not changing their life at all.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just being a jerk. So why don't I just take this power back, and either I'll give them a reason to not deny me next time, or I'll make a change. You know, and that was what it was. You know, one of the jobs I worked, I went in, I said, hey, I've been running the store for a while. I feel like I deserve a promotion. They said, well, we'll give you a raise, but we feel like, you know, we have a new store manager and we feel like you need to prove yourself, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And the raise was a decent raise. And the district manager ended it by saying, so we're going to see a new Brian going forward, right? And if he hadn't said that, I probably would have been like, all right, you know, okay, you know what? He's right. It is a new store manager. He's a new district. You know, new management. Sometimes you got to kind of reprove yourself. But then he went and said that. And when he said that, that just bit me the wrong way. And I said, you bet. And they did. I went in and did the bare minimum until I quit. And it wasn't long after that I quit. I realized at that point that I didn't want to be there. That was the catalyst for the change, though, was I realized that they didn't respect me the way I felt they should respect me. And that at that point, I was no longer going to give them more of me than they deserved. That was the change in my head. You know what I mean? And right, wrong, or indifferent, that was the new me that they got.
You showed them.
I sure did, and they don't care. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't really hurt them. In my head, it's some grand statement.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, all it
Sure
did,
showed them.
all it did was short him a shift leader. You know, it's.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, that's a great example. Like I said, in my head, I walked out, head held high. In their example, they were like, oh, we're down a shift leader for the week. You know, it's... so there you go, you know. But anyway, I got one last thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap up, because we're running a little long here. But I wanted to bring up, you know, the whole, you know, Pokemon Go is obviously, you know, bigger than Skynet. So, but I did see one thing that I thought was very relevant to this show, which is that I've been reading a bunch of stuff online about how there are people with depression and such that are getting out of their house and getting out of bed and using it as their basically it's giving them a motivation to get up and get out and get moving each day to go, you know, catch Pokemon or whatever. Yeah. And as much as I wish there was some other reason for them to want to get up and get out of bed, anything that does that is awesome. You know, no matter what the reason is, it's awesome that it's helping people. I mean, aside from, it's also helping obese people get up and move. I've talked to a few people that I know online that they have kids that are overweight, and their kids are like walking all sorts of, like walking multiple miles a day now.
Cool.
Walking around trying to find these things, and before they couldn't get their kids to like walk to the end of the street, basically.
Wow.
So at least the kids are getting some exercise, which is awesome. You know, that's better than nothing that they were getting before. So I can't knock something that's doing that, you know. And as much as I have no want to be any part of it, it's cool that it's doing that. And I do love the fact that from the mental health standpoint, like I said, anything that gives somebody some motivation to get out of bed that helps that process, you know, I can't help but give 2 thumbs up to. So kudos to them for that, you know. So, and if anyone's listening, you know, if you have some issues with it, you know, and you're down for, if you're the type that maybe a game might be something that'll, you know, maybe give you that, you know, that get up and go, you know, maybe it's worth a try. Yeah. So there you go. No judgment on it. Just there you go. That's about all I had on it.
It's good.
You want to hear any other opinions, go listen to Salty Language.
Yeah.
I go a little harder after it, but not really. I just go hard after the people making all the posts. They were driving me crazy. But so, you got anything to add to it, or
nope? That sounds good.
All right. You got anything else before we wrap this up?
No, let's wrap it up.
All right.
So on it.
All right. So if you want to continue the conversation, you can go to our website, which is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can send us emails at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can contact Jen on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life on Twitter. I just said that. It's Jen with a G. So, you know, send her something that says, hey, happy birthday or whatever. See, Heno, how can the kids reach out to you?
Find me at Ida Heno on Twitter, or find me at our Crazy Life locations.
Crazy Life locations. Like we've got...
at a Crazy Life location near you.
Yeah, like we have franchises out there.
Yes. We're
Awesome.
franchising.
I like that idea. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. That sweet, sweet franchise money. Finally. You can also check us out over on Facebook. We have a group over there. It's facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast that everybody should go join because you should. And I need to get better about posting on that.
Because joining.
Yeah. Also that.
Yeah.
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can check out the other podcast that I'm part of. Oh, actually, you can check out the Twitter account where I post when new shows go up at The Crazy Life Pod. You can check out the other podcast that I'm on, which is Salty Language, which is not safe for work. So pack the kids' ears with cotton if you're going to listen. And you can find that at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. Let's see, what else do I have here? We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com, or we're part of the Wicked Radio Network, which can be found at wickedradionetwork.com. And if you, however it is that you find us, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher, please give us thumbs up or share us, rate, review, and make sure you've subscribed to us. That way other people can find us easier so that, they can enjoy our sultry sounds and and whatever. And let's see, I think that's all the link stuff. So then I'll remind you that we're not doctors or trained therapists of any kind, and the show should not be mistaken for therapy. And if you need professional help, please seek out help. And please don't self-diagnose. If you need links over at the Facebook page, I've got a bunch of links for places you can find help, or if you need therapy, there's a link on there. For that, or reach out to us and we can, try to help you get some links for places that can help you out. If you're feeling suicidal, first of all, please don't act on it, and or if you're in the planning stage, also that's just as much of a red flag. So please don't, act on any of that. Contact your support system, or someone. Please don't be alone. Or call the suicide prevention hotline number, or text to 741. Send a text at 741-741, and they'll help you work through your crisis. Or call 911, tell them that you're having a mental health emergency. Or like I said, I've got a list of places on the Facebook group, so if you join that, I can do that. Or, like I said, message me and I'll send that to you. And I keep really crazy hours, so you can reach out to one of us pretty much any time of the day.
True.
Jen, or Henno pretty much can get back to you on that. So, I think that's everything. So, Henno, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, keep breathing.